The young man merely placed some jelly into a bowl. In the next second, all the jelly was teleported to the ancient Empress's altar. At that moment, the Empress was praying to the gods to bless her country. When she discovered some unidentified objects in the bowl, the Empress marveled that such miraculous food could exist in the world. She believed that these were gifts from the gods. Considering that the country was in the midst of a once-in-a-century bitter winter, the Empress immediately knelt down and begged the gods to bestow garments to ward off the cold. The young man from the 21st century was organizing the clothes in a warehouse. Unexpectedly, just as he tossed the clothes behind him, they were all instantly sucked into that bowl and teleported to the ancient Empress's altar. This made the Empress overjoyed. Looking at the clothes she had never seen before, they were extremely curious. Then, the three of them each tried the clothes on. They looked as if they had been tailor-made by the gods for them. Thus, they thanked the gods for their gifts. Meanwhile, the young man finished organizing the warehouse and discovered that everything he had just thrown on the ground had disappeared. He suspected that it was due to that old bowl, so he placed a bottle of vegetable oil to test it. In the next second, that bottle of oil was teleported to ancient times. The Empress had never seen oil this smooth. She thought that this oil could be used to maintain the soldiers' weapons, but the soldiers and citizens in the city were still lacking food. The Empress had intended to pray to the gods for some food. Suddenly, the belly band she had just taken off was sucked into the bowl. She worried that this unclean object might offend the gods. Little did she know that, on the other side, the young man was examining that magical bowl at home. A red belly band directly covered his face. He noticed that the belly band carried a subtle fragrance. Just as he was feeling incredulous, his ex-girlfriend walked over. Seeing him holding a female belly band, she assumed he was a pervert. Then, the ex-girlfriend handed him a report, falsely claiming that the child in her belly was his, and demanded $500,000 in child support. However, the young man was well aware that his ex-girlfriend was trying to scam him, because that child was not his at all. The young man refused his ex-girlfriend. In response, his ex-girlfriend, humiliated and angry, threatened him, then threw his cell phone into that bowl. Since the phone contained pornographic videos, the young man was very afraid they would be leaked. But before he could retrieve his phone, it was teleported to ancient times. The Empress picked up the phone to examine it. She speculated that the young man must be the god they had been referring to. Suddenly, the Empress played the pornographic video on the phone, which startled her greatly. She thought that the god had sent her the video as a hint. The young man, in order to retrieve his phone, so he used another phone to make a video call. Once the Empress answered the call, she immediately stated her identity. But the young man saw that they were all wearing modern clothing, and did not believe that they were people from ancient times. The Empress immediately switched to ancient clothing. Only then did the young man realize that the modern clothes they were wearing earlier were the ones he had thrown on the ground. Immediately afterward, the Empress explained to the young man that the country was in dire straits. Her uncle, in his bid for the throne, had allied with foreign tribes to launch an attack against them. Without more food, the country might be doomed to ruin. Therefore, she pleaded with the young man to grant them food for 200,000 people. The young man thought that he could barely support himself. How could he possibly provide food for 200,000 people? Just as he was about to refuse, the call was disconnected. Afterwards, he pondered for a moment. He reasoned that if the Empress mailed him a few antiques to sell, then he could help the Empress secure enough food for 200,000 people. Thinking that, he immediately